The breath of wind whispering truths.
The flickering flame igniting our words.
The rushing water cleansing uncouth.
The fractured earth exchanged in thirds.
A spirit's scroll comes unfurled.
As oracle eyes peer into our world.
Unfamiliar.
What's up, little nerds? It's time to talk about numbers.
Woo! Numbers!
Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Unfamiliar Witches. I'm Duckie. Ding.
I'm Cat.
Ding. And today, as you can tell, we're talking about numerology and numbers and magic and shit, and it's fucking rad. Cool. Just to start the conversation, Kat, just to have this recorded, what do you know about numerology?
Absolutely nothing.
Perfect. So what's fun about this is you actually might know more about it than you think.
Great.
What's really interesting about numerology is it's like a very simple thing, and therefore you find it in a bunch of different cultures throughout all of history, basically. And then as it's sort of modernized and become this like the term neo-pagan, like it basically just means like new paganism, that sort of thing. Modern paganism, as that kind of becomes more popular and becomes more of a thing, and as Wicca becomes one of the fastest growing religions, like numerology with it, along with many other topics, has just changed and become this like weird subculture thing that gets switched and has a bunch of different beginnings and endings, and it has a bunch of different methods of how you can do it and stuff like that. So it's a lot more common than you think. Basically, numerology or arithmancy basically just means you have a belief in an occult, divine, or mystical relationship between a number and one or more coinciding events. So basically just means numbers are magical. Like,
Yay. Does that mean is the rule of threes technically numerology then?
it technically would be, yeah. That is
Oh,
kind
cool.
of like 3 is obviously a very important number. The reason the rule of 3 exists is because 3 is a predominantly featured number in like Germanic paganism, like proper Germanic paganism from when things were Germanic tribes. So we're thinking like Norse, West Germanic, some like Irish, Celtic sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So because 3 was showing up a lot in their like stories and in their culture and in runes and stuff like that. And then also like multiples of 3, so like 6, 9, all the way up to like whatever number. Because that's seen a lot, that's why 3 was really popular. So then whenever people were basically stealing and absorbing things, be it the Christians or the people who were creating Wicca way later and stuff like that, like they stuck with 3 and then used it, kind of changed it for their own purposes. So what's really cool is you can find numerology in a bunch of different locations, like Arabic, Hebrew, Greek, everywhere, basically. Like Indian has versions. There's different versions depending on like what form of numbers you use. Like in the USA, we use obviously to 10, like 1 through 9 and 0 typically, or 1 through 9 and 10, or 0 to 10, that sort of vibe. There are some cultures that use different number structures, basically. So that's neat.
Yeah.
And obviously that affects and changes how it does it. But the ones you see in... Oh, and then like, so for example, in Japan, there's a really cool different version. I don't know how to word all this together. I like got all this collected and then didn't think of the structure of the episode, so this is going to be chaotic.
That's okay.
A lot of numerology that we see in modern times is actually onomancy, or at least in like Wicca and New Age paganism and stuff like that. What we're really seeing is like nomancy or onomancy, which is a divination based on a subject's name. So you're basically like mixing numerology and your own name.
Mm.
This could basically, there's like a few different ways to do this. So one of the most like modern, or not most modern, one of the more common versions that you see in the USA is you essentially assign numbers to all of the letters of the alphabet. And then from that, you like add up all of the like you write out your name, and then underneath it write out all the numbers that correspond to each letter in your name, and then you kind of use those numbers and add them up, and then you do weird stuff, and then you get like single digits, like single integers, and then you use that to kind of like determine destiny stuff. It's really like loosey goosey. In some cultures, like in Japan with kanji, or anything that uses like Chinese script, Taiwanese script, anything like that, which I believe is also based on like, it's all based on very similar things. Some of theirs, some of the way they use onomancy is actually they count the number of strokes in the, like used to make the figures, which is kind of neat.
Oh yeah, that's the thing I remember seeing.
So like our K, instead of being whatever it is in whatever chart you're following, it would be 3 because you do 1 strike down and then 2 strikes out. That sort of vibe, which is really cool. And they do that because they use a logogram, or like logograph, lexicograph, which is another version of that you might be familiar with, is like Egyptian hieroglyphics, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Do you have questions yet? I feel like I covered a lot already.
No, not yet. It's been very informative so far.
So awesome. Good to hear. Also, if this is a little bit more of a one-sided episode, so sorry. Obviously, I'm teaching Kat and the audience a little bit, and that's just neat. So there's a few different systems you can use for numerology. Obviously, there's probably hundreds, but the one I am most familiar with, so there's like Chaldean, Chaldean, Chilean. I think there's like 3 different variations of the same one, something like that.
That's a lot of words.
Yeah. But the one that I'm most familiar with is Pythagorean.
The Pythagorean theorem.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So the way that this one works, this like, it basically you make a chart that is the numbers 1 through 9. So you, like on a piece of paper, you can write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you line up A with 1, B with 2, C with 3, and so forth. And then when you get down to the number 9, you'll be on I. And then because there's no number to match it up with, you move down to the next line. And then J is with 1, K is with 2, L is with 3, M is with 4, that sort of thing. And you go until you get to R, and then you go back down to S being 1, and you just go to the end of the alphabet. And then the way most typically I see that people use numerology is, for example, with the names. Just for an auditory example, let's say we use the word cat. So we'll use K-A-T just to use Kat's abbreviated name, right? So K is going to be a 2, A is going to be a 1, and T will be a 2 as well. And then we would add those numbers up. So 2, 2, and 1, which is a 5. And then 5 would be the number we're using. Weird, right?
Yeah.
So let's say it's Kat's full legal name, which I'm not going to say because I don't want to dox her.
That's fair.
But your name adds up to 79 total.
Oh.
Like, this is your middle name, last name, first name, right? All together. 79 total. Yeah. So the way you simplify this, because you really want to be working with like one number, ideally. So we would add 7 and 9, which gets us 16. And then you add 6 and 1, so we're down to 7.
So 7.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So then you can do a lot of fun different things once you have like your name written out and all the numbers. So what we just came up with, that 7, is technically like your destiny number, is what it's sometimes referred to as. So you've got your life path number, your destiny number, your soul urges number, and then your personality number. So
hold on, I want to write those down. You have the what?
Oh my God. Okay, so life path number, which is all of the numbers in your birthday, including a 4-digit year. You have your destiny number, which is all of the letters in your full name. You have your soul's urge number, which is all of the vowels in your full name. And then you have your personality number, which is all of your consonants in your full name.
Well, what was the last one called?
Personality.
Personality.
And then you can even do stuff like numerology for your house. So you could do it for your address or a potential address that you would be moving to. Or you can do it for a new job. Take the position that you'd be in and then also take the company that you'd be in. And you can either use this separately, you can put them together, you can get like really cool readings on stuff like this. And then it's basically just the way I would do it, work it down to a simple number, and then you just kind of use the associations with that number, whether it's your own personal, whether it's your cultures, that sort of thing, and you can figure it out. There's tons of information you can look up too, like your destiny number and your personality number. If it's the same number, it might not equal the same sort of like quote unquote reading, let's say, that you would do. But yeah, kind of neat. So, fun fact about Kat and I, we have the same destiny number. Because mine is 7 as well.
That's cool.
And then your if you want to know, your magical name is 6. Because it's 51 and then 6. Yep. So 6, as far as I could tell, is like you're very creative, you're very nurturing. Nurturing's like a really big one on that.
That makes sense.
You kind of bring harmony to stuff. You've got a lot of wisdom and knowledge, you know. The number 6. Oh, I actually have, cool, I didn't realize I had that. So I'm going to read a little bit about what each like number kind of means. So like your life path number, it represents the path you should take through life and the talents and skills that you have to make your journey a rewarding one. This is all stolen from a website, I'm sure. This is stuff I have in my grimoire that I haven't looked at in like a year, so we'll, you know.
Love it.
Your destiny number, sometimes referred to as an expression number, it's basically sheds lights on things you should accomplish in your life to be fulfilled, which is kind of fun. Your soul urge or heart's desire number is going to be your deepest desires and dreams. Kind of reveals your inner private self, your underlying motivations, stuff that's like ingrained in you. And then your personality number is your external. And it's kind of the traits that other people know you by. And sometimes it can be like your appearance and stuff too. Very similar to like, it kind of is all very similar to like your natal chart and like astrology. Even so, like numbers are sometimes associated with planets even, and then also in correlation because the numbers in numerology and in onomancy are directly correlated to are directly correlated to letters of the alphabet. The alphabet's also tied to the planets, which is neat.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts?
No, I'm just like looking at all of these things that I've written down, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
really complex but simple
it
thing. It's
is,
really weird.
yeah, it's very complex. So there are associations with numbers already, like if because you already said like my magical name was 6 for the destiny number. And you talked a little bit about like that's nurturing and stuff. There are like correlations with that through all of the numbers through 9, like 1 through
Yeah.
9.
Yep.
Cool.
So, we're actually going to do some little fun stuff about that.
Ooh.
So, a fun activity we can do to kind of explain this, we're actually going to use a number not 1 through 9, but you'll get the gist.
Ooh. Okay.
So, my big question to pose for you, Kat, because this is one of the most magical numbers, in my opinion, is oh, first off, what is your favorite number? Do you have one?
Oh, that's a hard one. Um, so I can't say off the top of my head if I do. If you've asked me this before and I've answered, then use whatever that number was. But whenever you said that, the first number that popped into my head was 14. So
That's hilarious.
great.
I love that. Um,
If you want a 1 through 9, I can give you a different number. But
no, 14's great. I like that number. Um, it's also cool because I feel like most people wouldn't choose 14, which is kind of
yeah,
neat.
it's kind of a underrated number. But like my reasoning for 14 is that it's because lucky number 7, right? It's number 7 twice. So
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so iconic. Okay, so actually, our little activity thing, we're going to use the number 13. So we're going to subtract
okay.
one. So, Kat, tell me everything you can think of with the number 13. Everything.
Oh God. Oh no.
Obviously, you'd be able
Improv
to
is my
think of
weakest.
more if you were posed this before, but
Yeah, right. Okay, so 13. Friday the 13th.
iconic. Yep.
Not only the movie, but also like the fact that that's usually associated with bad luck. Also associated with like tattoo places because usually tattoo places will give you like $10 tattoos off of a sheet of paper on Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
13. Is that a no? Hold on. Let me Google that before I offend myself and other people. Nope, that was wrong. Okay. Just kidding. Whatever I was going to say, not that.
I can assist by saying
Um,
things randomly.
sure. Oh,
Hotels.
there are 13. Oh, you're right. There's usually not a 13th floor
Yeah. What were
because
you
it's
gonna?
bad luck.
You thought of something?
Um, I did think of something. If I'm right, there are 13 moon cycles, like cycles of the moon every year,
Roughly, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's pretty accurate.
roughly. Yeah, it's like because I remember that it's not exactly 12 because some months have like 2 new moons or something. So I think there's 13. I could be wrong. Um, in hold on, I gotta count. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nope, that would be wrong. I was gonna say there's 13 cards in each suit in a deck of playing cards, but there's actually 14, I think.
I think it is 13 actually.
Is it 13? Does the ace count?
Because it would be 1 through, or sorry, yeah, ace through 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And
Oh,
then
yeah, you're right.
Jack, King, Queen.
You're
Yeah,
right. I just suck at
13.
counting. Yeah, there's 13 cards in each suit in a deck of cards. Off the top of my head, that's all I've got. But are there other things? There are probably other things.
So many things.
So many things that are 13.
So for 13,
Oh, I have one more.
yeah.
13 is when everybody becomes a teenager because you can get double digits at like 10 or 11, but they don't consider you a teenager until you're 13.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you got so many good things. Um,
Yay!
so basically, what we're proving is just like with 13, you can do this with any number. And that is a good way to figure out, like, what are some of the associations and characteristics of a number that you think? Um, so that's just like base statement, boom, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, if you are looking stuff similar to color or um, really anything, any sort of ingredient in a spell, anything like that, it all comes down to like your personal connection with and association with a number, right? Like, let's say your grandma only has 9 fingers, like, and if you think of the number 9 and you think of your grandma all the time or something like that, it's just a
That's
random example I
true.
came up with. And then like you think of her qualities that stand out to you and kind of associate it with the number 9, it's different for everyone, right?
Hmm.
So 13 is really fun because 13 is like super different a ton. It's too super weird and different across like tons of cultures. It's used in tons of shit, obviously. So just going on the Wikipedia page for the number 13. Cool? I'm just
Yeah.
going to read stuff off. So, yeah, 13 is a prime number. Really rad. Um,
Oh, that's true.
it's sometimes a happy number and a lucky number, which is weird because
Hmm.
it's known to be unlucky for a lot of people as well, with like Friday the 13th and stuff. It's a
Right.
number in the Fibonacci sequence.
Oh.
It is a number that can form a Pythagorean triple, which means it's one of the sides of a right triangle, potentially, with 5 and 12 as the other ones.
Oh.
I know, not as exciting, but it's like cool shit like that. And then you're like, oh, so it's like, let's say, so like that would probably mean 5 is one side, 12 is the other side, and then the hypotenuse, which is the
Hmm.
one opposite the right angle, would be 13. So you could say 13 is a number that like needs support. And then you also from that get like
That's true.
5 is a number that can like be very sturdy and hold something up because
Yeah.
it can help form a right angle, that sort of thing. Science. So 13 is the atomic number of aluminum. And then you have all of the properties of aluminum that you can tie to 13, obviously. And you can do that with tons of numbers. In Germany, according to an old tradition, 13 as the first compound number was the first number written in digits because 0 through 12 are spelled out, which would be null to wolf in German, which is fun. Like, that's just a
Interesting.
weird thing. So in Judaism, 13 is the age at which a boy matures and has their bar mitzvah,
You're right.
which is kind of a neat thing in and of itself. And obviously, like, in American culture, it is very you become a young adult at 13 is kind of the vibe.
Hmm.
It's your last year before high school. Sometimes it's your first year of
Yeah.
high school. Obviously, it's in like lots of cultures and religions and mythologies across the world. I haven't been reading them, but they show up. In Wicca, like 13 members is the ideal number for a coven. You find that a lot with like witches and hags of folklore as well. Like 13 is the number.
True.
I can think of like tons of old like German fairy tales and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, they're going to sacrifice 12 children all born on some variation of a moon for the 12 months, and then the 13th one is like the most important, and they need to either be on like a blue moon or some significant day to the plot line or something like that. Like tons of movies and all kinds of stuff that use that.
Another cool thing about 13, if we had a 13th month in the year instead of just 12, all of the months would be able to have the same number of days.
Isn't that so rad?
Yeah.
I think about that all the time, and it makes me so angry that it's not the standard.
I know.
Because, like, there's 52 weeks in a year. 13 times 4 is 52. It's the same as a deck of cards. It's the same number of suits. And, like, it's so perfect. It's so weird. It's so dumb that we don't do it.
I know.
Because it also, like, then you can have, let's say your week starts on Sunday and it goes to Saturday. And then every calendar is perfect.
Exactly.
Because it's just
You'd
4 rows.
To know.
It's a clean chart. Yeah. Like
exactly. Freaking Thanksgiving could be on the same day every year.
Right? It makes my autism crazy that it's not like that.
I know.
And then it's like all we have to do is just however often the math is wrong, we just add 2 random extra days that aren't on the calendar, or like are on the calendar every 4 years, like we do with the leap day. We just do 2 instead to like make it fixed. It works so much easier. Like, and we just have like culturally, those could just be 2 days of rest. You could put them at the very end of a year, like. So it's also a beginning of a new year, and you just set intention during those 2 days, and you stay at home when it's the winter.
And it would be freaking lovely.
Or for the other part of the world, the summer, so they get to like hang out. And have 2 great days.
And like go surfing.
For real. I think about that way too often, so sorry.
I know. No, me too. It plagues me.
So yeah, we talked about the hotel thing for the 13th floor, which is fun because it continues to like, there's still a 13th floor, but it's just labeled as 14.
Right, they just call it the 14th. Yeah.
So in the Last Supper, there's 13 people at the table.
Oh, you're right.
The 12 apostles and Jesus. And then some people think the number 13 is unlucky because it represents Judas, who betrayed Jesus, obviously.
Oh.
So 13 moons. Let's talk about that. So I didn't realize this was actually on here, but then when you started saying it, I started scrolling and I found it. So what's really interesting is a year with 13 moons versus 12 moons. It's not the most common, but it's much more common than we think. Basically, in a typical century, okay, so in 100 years, about 37 of the years have 13 full moons compared with 63 that only have 12.
Oh.
And it's like every 3rd or 4th year has 13 full moons, which is kind of neat.
That's like extra lucky in my opinion.
Absolutely. In ancient cultures, the number 13 represented femininity because it corresponded to the number of lunar cycles in a year, so like menstrual cycles, because 13 times 8 is 364.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And then it says the theory is that as the solar calendar triumphed over the lunar, the number 13th became anathema.
Became what? That's a word I've never heard before.
Something or someone that one vehemently dislikes, a formal curse by a pope or council of the church. So like
Oh.
somebody excommunicated would be anathema. So it's like
Oh.
against the protocol because
Got you.
the man, the sun, ruled over the
The man.
man, which is annoying.
Yeah.
A baker's dozen. Oh my god, I can't believe we didn't think of that.
Oh my gosh, you're right. That's 13.
Ah, and then in astronomy, there's 13 star constellations in the zodiac,
Oh.
which is where we kind of get like people were trying to make a 13th zodiac thing happen in astrology, which is probably why that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what the 13th card in a tarot deck is? Off the top of your
Is
head?
it death?
It is death. How rad is that?
That's really sick.
That. Basically,
Cool.
you can do that with every number, and I think that's very fascinating.
Yeah, that's really fascinating because I didn't even think of it. But that's the same thing like when we were talking about mystical fruits. Like association to fruit is literally everywhere, so why would not the same thing apply to numbers? That's like totally correct.
Yeah, right? And color and stuff like that. Like it's all kind of similar.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, it's Kat. Enjoying the show? Be sure to share us with your friends and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow, rate us, leave us a review, or anything else you want to do. Now let's get back to the magic with unfamiliar witches.
So because we both work with the elements a lot, I wrote something down and then I was like, does that feel right? And then I was like, yeah, it totally feels right. Oh, also, totally didn't talk about how this is the 7th episode. Oh well.
You're so right.
I know that's a thing. So like 7, right? So like 777 is like the slot machines. Typically a super lucky number, kind of the antithesis of 13, which is kind of fun. If you roll 2 dice, 7 is the average. That
7 is funky. Love that.
Really funky. But this thing that I had written down was I wrote down the elements and I wrote them in the order that I used them. And then I was like, so basically, if you had to or if you had to use or write the elements in a straight line, like how would you arrange them? Because it's different than a circle, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I would do a circle of the 4 elements and then spirit would be in the middle. But if I wrote them in a straight line, it would go air, fire, spirit, water, earth. And I don't know why I do that, but I do that.
Okay.
Like if I'm burning candles side by side. So just based on that, air would be 1, fire would be 2, spirit would be 3, water would be 4, and earth would be 5. And then I was like, spirit's 3, which makes tons of sense because triple deity, all of the crazy things that 3 is in tons of cultures, including my own ancestry. That makes 1 air, which is like, I don't know, that feels very correct for me.
Yeah.
2 is fire because like if you're second place, you're envious of first place, so you have a fire and a passion to work harder. Like air is 1, it cuts through the truth, it kind of leads the way with its sword, like it's the leader. Kind of neat. Think of like using a machete to cut through a jungle or something. Water is 4 because it kind of goes with the flow. And it just falls in line. And then 5 follows up and is like the rock and the sturdiness. 5, penta, earth, pentacles. Like, isn't that weird that you can do that with like, you can do that with anything though. Like,
yeah, that's kind of amazing.
So then, oh my God, I just came up with this. Do you do like a skincare routine, question mark, or something along those lines?
I used to be really good with my skincare routine. I've been slacking recently, but yeah, technically I still do.
Same. So then I'm like, how many products are you using? Do you use a different
Mm.
number of products for the day versus the night? What is that
Mm.
number of products you're using? Or when you're doing something, how many steps are there in what you're doing?
Yeah,
Isn't that fun?
that is fun.
Doesn't that,
Wow.
I feel like that like opens very similar to like thinking of fruit in a new way, thinking of numbers in a new way, thinking of color in a new
Yeah,
way. Like really changes the way you think about the world, and then everything mundane is magical. Like,
for sure. Because it is. Everything mundane is magical. Like 100%.
isn't that fascinating?
That's crazy. That is so fascinating. I'm just reeling. I'm like sitting here thinking about all of them.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I just thought of that too. I just was like, I looked up at my shelf in front of me that has my skincare on it. I was like, oh shit.
Oh shit.
It's
I do that.
everywhere. So yeah, do you have
They're in the room.
questions for me?
So, kinda. I mean, because we talked about like numerology is kind of like a reading. Like you go into it and you find your destiny number or whatever, and then there's things associated with that number that you can like find answers in, or like you can derive stuff from that.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not necessarily as changing as like a card reading would be, or like an aura reading or something like that. So how would you gauge, because people can take different paths in their life, like at any point in time, of course. How would you gauge change within that?
That is really fascinating. And I kind of always think of that concept whenever I'm thinking about like a natal chart too,
Mm-hmm.
because a natal chart tracks where everything, like basically where every other mass was in relation to Earth when you were born. And it's
Yeah.
like it only tracks when you were born. That's specifically what a natal chart does. But then
Mm-hmm.
because astrology is astrology, like you use your natal chart in a kind of alignment with where the stuff currently, like where the planets currently are. Um, and it kind of, that is how you do change with that. With obviously tarot or oracle, it's like constantly changing. So
Yeah.
that's where numerology, I think, gets a little weird, personally. Um, I think you would have to go to. So the way your natal chart is set in stone, I think that same way for like onomancy with like your name
Mm-hmm.
is kind of that. Uh, but then it's also, do you have nicknames? What are those? Do you transition and you change your name, or do you ever like legally change your name when you get married? That changes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where my personal thought is like I would pull things from. I would pull like what's changing in your life or what could change in your life and use that. So, for example, like a new job, the job title, the place of business, you can pull numerology off of that. If you're thinking about moving into a new house, pull the thing for your like figure it out for your new address. Um,
Okay.
that's kind of what I think. Maybe I don't. To be perfectly honest, I don't super use numerology like a ton. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if I was gonna do numerology as a service for somebody, that's probably what I would use as prompts first, like questions I would ask them beforehand, and then kind of build my reading off of that.
Right.
Obviously their name too. Um,
That
yeah,
makes
that's a
sense.
great question.
Thank you. No, that makes sense though. Like using the objects around you rather than like expecting like yourself to change or something like that. That would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
There's also, sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna elaborate more, like, because there are some days, because my name is Katrina, but I go by Kat, and there are some days where I feel more like a Katrina than I do Kat, and most of the time I feel like Kat. So that would also make sense, like depending on, what you're feeling that day, what your nickname is, or like who you're hanging out with, what you're doing. That makes sense. I like that.
And for me, for example, um, my like birth name and the name I go by are completely different. So if we go by Cameron, it's which is a name I use for work usually and at work, and they don't know Duckie most of the time. Like,
Wild. Can't imagine.
isn't that so weird? But it's
That's
because
so
like
weird.
that's what the HR person's seeing on my thing, and then I just don't tell them that my nickname is Duckie usually.
Hmm.
Because when I do, if I'm in a professional setting, usually I get like, no, we're not calling you that. Like I've literally had somebody say that to me, to my face. I was like, cool, great.
That's transphobic for one.
Right. So, um, like Cameron is my work numerology number, and then Duckie would be that. And when I think of Duckie, I think of a different last name than my actual last name just because it sounds better. So then that name is completely different. And that's like where we get into like my personal life versus my work life. And then like I have two different numerology numbers, but then like one of
Hmm.
them's more real than the other one is to me personally.
Right.
And then you can get into if you have a name that you use for spiritual practice,
Hmm.
that number could be different. It might be the same. If you're choosing a new name, like if you realize you might be trans or something like that, or if you're choosing a spiritual name, or if you're naming a pet, like you can kind of play with names and figure out what their numerology is, and therefore, like, not really determine fate, but maybe determine, like, you can kind of influence it a little bit that way, where their identity
Oh,
or your own identity kind of sways that, which is kind of neat.
the vibe. That is neat.
Do you have more thoughts?
Do I have more thoughts?
I was gonna say,
Never.
I feel like the answer is no, but also like your brain's going a mile a minute.
It is. I'm just thinking a lot.
So
At the
another,
moment, I don't have more questions, but
I was just gonna add like, so my advice would
mhm,
be in your practice, just be a little bit more thoughtful about numbers. Like if you're doing something, whether it be like associating the elements with the numbers, or let's say you're burning 2 candles versus 3, or you're using 1 crystal versus 7, or something like that. Like, I don't know, just being a little bit more mindful about color, numbers,
yeah,
fruit, breathing.
fruit.
Like, kind of fun, kind
Yeah,
of a weird topic.
I'm definitely going to be thinking more about like how numbers come into play daily because that's just something that I did not really think a whole lot about or like derive meaning from, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, so for example, we are recording this December 1st,
Hmm.
2023. So we
Hmm.
could add all those numbers up. and that kind of could determine our day. Or we could just think, okay, so December 1st, that's like 12 and 1. So if we add up 12 and 1, it would be 13. Or if you break it down individually, it would be 1, 2, and 1, which is 4. 13 and 4 are both the same. Like, and then also we go into 13, which we were just talking about a lot. Happy coincidence.
Happy coincidence.
4. So if we tie that to the elements the way that I think of it, it's water. Today's very watery. It was raining a lot today. Like,
That it was.
like, it's just,
Yeah.
there's so many possibilities and so many, like, not looked at items, let's say.
Yeah. How neat.
Right.
I've been out here every episode. I keep challenging people to do something. So we're gonna keep that trend going. This episode, I am going to challenge whoever wants to take it to pick a number or like observe a number in your day and derive something from that. Like see how that connects for you because that's really interesting. I'm gonna take tomorrow. I have to work in the morning. So I'm gonna look for maybe patterns or numbers that are significant tomorrow, and I'll touch back in with you, Ducky, and I will let you know what I come up with.
Hell yeah. That's so fun. I used to in high school and then into college, like my first 2 years of college, I saw morning and night. My junior and senior year of high school, it was every single day, like no joke. But
Oh.
into college, whatever, I would see morning and night. I would always see 7:27 on the clock, both AM and PM,
Oh.
every time. I would just happen to look at the clock and it would be 7:27. Or it'd be like 1 minute off and then flip to as I look at it. Like, just to be like,
That's sick.
just a random like check in, like, what time is it? Every single day.
7:27. That is so cool.
Isn't that weird? And it's just like,
Yeah.
it literally, if it didn't happen so often, I would not notice it. And
Yeah, that's wild.
that is, well, realistically, that's magic because that's how you, for example, that's how like your spirit guides or deity work with. That's how they send you messages, right? Like it's got to be so,
Right.
sometimes it has to be so blatantly obvious like that, where it's like you can't
Yeah.
help but ignore it.
That is so cool.
And now it's like, it is a very, it is a time that is like very structured in my brain. It used to be when I would set my alarm after that
Mhm.
because like it just made sense to me.
Yeah.
After college, when I worked at the pharmacy, I had to get in at 8. So I set my alarm at 7:27 because it kind of timed out right my morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that just weird and fascinating?
That is so fascinating.
So it's like, if you
I
look for
love
it,
it.
you'll see it. Like, you'll see
Yeah.
numbers.
I'm so excited to see numbers.
Right? Hell yeah.
Oh,
And if
hi.
you find
Very
out
cool.
what your numbers are, what your onomancy is, and you'd like to leave comments on that, do that too. Tell us.
Yeah.
Tell us your
Let us
thing.
know. Yeah, maybe we can like look into it a little bit and kind of like also like if we see anything and you're like, yeah, my number was this, and we notice it, maybe we'll comment some stuff that means. Who knows?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
And I will, mayhaps, I don't know. It's kind of hard because like a lot of spiritual websites, they kind of just copy and paste from other people and then change a couple things. And when they change stuff, it's like, how diluted is all of this information getting because you're trying not to plagiarize, that sort of vibe. But I will try to link some websites that have like breakdowns of numbers. But at the end of the day, it's kind of personal preference, honestly. in my opinion. So that's a thought.
Love it.
We didn't even talk about this, but then you get into like different sets of dies and like polyhedral dice and shapes and
Oh yeah.
oh my god, there's so much.
Yeah, maybe because I'm gonna do now that I'm like really interested in it and I have like a little basis, I think I want to do more research into different types of numerology and stuff. Maybe this is one that we can revisit down the road and get like even more in depth in.
Absolutely. We're gonna do that
That'd be
with
so
every
fun.
topic.
Yeah, literally we're gonna have all of these episodes and then like
Twice.
next calendar year we're gonna like redo each episode.
That's so funny. That's the thing I find that's so fun and fascinating about doing this podcast is like all of these topics we can dive into these topics for like hours
Yeah, we
and
do like
trying to
one
figure it
hour or so
out.
episodes usually, but like we could talk for forever about that.
Like we could easily you and I could sit here and talk for an entire day, like 12 hours of awake time and cut it.
Yeah,
And we could cut like half of the stuff we say and still have a like brilliant 6 hour long podcast. And it's like, it's just wild that these topics are
it
so
is.
dense to get through, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's kind of amazing though. And it keeps it interesting too, because, we're not trying to sit here and overload everybody with like a bunch of information all at once. I really like the approach that we've been taking to it, where it's like, here is the basic entry level stuff about this topic. And then, like, months later or even a year later, we can revisit and be like, building on what we already said,
Right.
I really like
Because I think it's important, like, especially with spirituality and witchcraft, I find we either get like, be it novels that are written or informational videos, podcasts, whatever, the information that is out there to collect is either the same boring beginner shit that's copy and pasted, like
that. Right.
correspondence charts. If I never have to look at one of those again, I will be so happy. Like, like I don't need to know what basil does for the 80th time. Like,
Yes, you do.
or cinnamon. Like, I'm good. I can figure it out. Um, but we either get like the most basic entry level stuff, or we get, if we're lucky, we find that like golden nugget of like, oh, this person's a complete expert and they've even forgotten how to talk about any of the middle bits or second stage of information because they're
Hmm.
so an expert. They've been doing this for like 30 years and they were born into a culture with it. So they had it as a child and they've been doing it professionally
Right.
for 30 years. And then they wrote a book about the beginner stuff. And it's like their book might be great, but it's beginner stuff. And it's like you, in between expert and complete noob, it's really hard to find good information.
It is. That's very true.
And that's where it's like, I feel like that's where most people are. And it's kind of because it's
Yeah.
like a personal practice thing. Like you have to figure it out for
Yeah.
yourself. But it's strange. And that's what I love
It's
about
a
our
solo.
podcast.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. Because it's like, to a point, this is a solo journey. Like, you go on this journey on your own, you make the decision to do it. It's a lot about finding personal, stuff to go along with it and to help you along the way. But it's easy to feel alone in that sometimes and feel like there's not other people that are right there with you. Like you said, there's so many people that are either total beginner or like complete experts, and then they're just feeding like the same information over and over. It's easy to feel like you're the only one that's in that middle ground. And you're not.
Right.
Haha.
That's like, I would almost love for, I would like, if this podcast ran like into us retiring, like forever, right? Like,
Yeah.
ideally, we would do every topic like 3 times, and you would get
Hmm.
like a maiden version of it, a mother version of it, and a crone version of it.
Yeah.
Or it's like beginner, entry level, just kind of exploring the topic as a broad thing, and then a narrower scope, and then like an expert opinion on it. Like that would be so dope.
That would be so dope.
I almost want to write like a book
We should write a book.
that's just the middle version of everything. Like, what is the
Yeah.
middle level of figuring out these topics?
Maybe we should start a Google Doc and we'll just start
For real.
writing the middle ground version in there, and eventually it'll be a book.
And then, like, I always think, like, but do the experts think that they're in the middle too?
Yeah, I wonder.
And nobody thinks they're an expert when they are? Like,
There definitely have to be some that think they are or know they are experts. But, like, for the largest part, potentially.
and then, like, what if people think we're experts when they start listening?
Please don't think I'm an expert.
Horrifying, right?
This is scary.
Because I'll listen to people talk about stuff like this and it blows my mind. And then I turn around on TikTok and they're talking about Dark Christmas. And it's like, what the fuck? But then I'm like, does that person have imposter syndrome? The one that just blew my mind and like is light years ahead of me in even just like processing their thoughts about all of this.
Right.
Fascinating.
Extremely fascinating. Love that we just outed ourselves as not professional.
Yeah, right. Whatever.
Whatever. I mean, to be fair, I think we mentioned that at the beginning of the podcast too, that like technically we're not professionals. We've just been doing this for a long time, and both of our practices started to feel stagnant, and we were like, we got to work together. And then we just started this because not only is it forcing us to talk to each other and actually like hang out virtually.
Be besties, yeah.
Be besties, yeah. But it's also forcing us to like grow our practice for each other and with each other, because like the things I research for the podcast help me along the way too, you know?
Absolutely. I think I don't know. I have no thoughts. My brain died.
My brain's gone.
I don't know. I feel like it's very powerful that we're just like, yeah, we're not professionals. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. We are learning alongside everybody else. Even if other people are like listening and taking our advice and everything, you know, that's awesome. That's great because that's why we're doing this. But like, we're still learning, and that's how it should be. Even professionals should still be learning. Like everybody should still be learning, because the moment you stop learning, that's the moment you doom your practice.
Wow, what a fun conversation.
Yeah, to have at the end of a numerology episode.
I don't know how this is going to edit together, but I'm fascinated to find out.
I don't know. I love it.
Cool. I hope that you, Kat, have had a great time this evening.
I have. I learned lots.
Yay. And I hope that you, listener, Todd, Fred, Jeff, Sammy, Suzanne, Wilson, I don't know. I'm just coming up with the random names. I hope that Danielle, my sister, I hope
Danielle
that you
specifically.
Yes. I hope that you have all had a fun, funky, fresh, fascinating time with numbers, you nerds. Oh,
yeah.
well. And with that, peace out, baby.
Have fun doing your unintentional math.
Homework for witches. Ding. I definitely dabbed on that ding.
Oh my gosh, I'll dab too. There we go.
Ding. Iconic. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked that episode, please leave us a review and a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're on. Also, feel free to follow us over on all of our socials at Unfamiliar Witches, where we post bonus witchy content and chaos. See you next week. Now play us out, Janet.